Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science, Sattology means the science of truth or study of truth. And opposite of that is mythology, science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. The European colonial powers, Dutch, French, Spanish, English, Swedes, Greenland, Russia, all these countries, they after the bubonic plague in Europe and all the other different kinds of plague, they started dividing the world into non-Christian lands into their own fold. So between 1300 and 1500, the European population went down by half because of all these kinds of diseases. And the papal bull was introduced by the Roman Catholic Church to claim the lands for expanding Christianity. The goals were three: gold, glory, and God. Gold, glory, and God. And that's why you'll see the Spain was given the west coast of Americas and India, and Portugal was given the east side, which included India also. So everyone wanted to come to India. And after 100 years, around 1600s, English got serious and they joined later on, but they were the worst also. But all of these were competing amongst themselves. We have seen what English have done. Most of the problems, current problems in the world have come from the English colonialism. But the destruction of cultures has come from Portugal and Spanish conquerors. They destroyed natives of South America and Philippines to a large extent. And Portugal did the remaining job in Brazil and also tried to do in India, but they failed. But the British did something else. They very cleverly changed the textbooks or the education system to suit the English crown. And that's what they did in other places. They destroyed the civilizations completely, looted them. And so today we are facing with a unique problem of identity crisis. The biggest problem is identity crisis. And identity crisis actually leads to lack of innovation, lack of self-confidence, and also economic poverty. So I have a very, very special guest. He's an author and come on the show 2-3 times. You all loved his talks. So without delay, let us welcome Shri Chanchal Malviya.
Namaste.
Namaste, Chanchalji. Chanchalji, you can move your camera a little bit down so that your head space is visible more. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So, Chanchalji, what are the basic faults of the Indian education system today?
See, Aditya, um, I had been working on this from past 10 years after I left my IT job in IBM. And I have tried to answer a more serious question that why there had been basically many attempts to revive this education system. Why have we failed in doing it? Why have we not evolved our own education system or textbook or so in past 60 to 70 years? So to understand this, we will have to go into the roots, and we can divide this invasion, educational invasion, into two parts. Now there are many. You already talked about some basics of invasion, in fact, but from the context of our country, India or Bharat, and from the context of invasion into education system, we can divide things into two parts. The first era of invasion into education was taking away of scriptures from here. Again, the policy of divide and rule, was so much deep rooted in invaders, particularly European invaders, and in particular, specific the Britishers, that they divided this whole content also into two parts. One is humanity and another is science. Our content was a very integrated content in Sanskrit. So spirituality and science were not two different area of study or two different scriptures. They were well integrated, and hence a larger time they invested in translating. When they were doing translations of all the scriptures, they invested in segregating these two things, in fact. So that is how their Oriental studies got developed in Europe and in past 400 years of science in Western world. So they took a major part of our science. This has to be understood. Now, what didn't suit them, as you rightly told, was the spiritual aspect of our system. They had their own religious agenda, which and our spiritual aspect, these things were not matching. So they had to remove it, and they did it for their own purpose in their countries, and so. Now we all know in our country, we we put the blame, or we put the credit, or whatever we say, that we say that it is Macaulay who actually designed, or who is the mastermind in changing the education system. Whoever it is, Macaulay or few more people, whoever they are, but what is more important to understand is what did they do, what was their intention, and how did they achieve their goals. There is no doubt, seeing the current scenario, there is no doubt that we are more enslaved now than we were enslaved 70 years ago, pre-independence, what we call pre-independence days, in fact. In those days, we did not accept English education or this modern education. We were fighting for our own identity and freedom, and other things. But now we have given up. In fact, we are fighting to get what they wanted to give. So we are more enslaved now. So Macaulay and his team are successful now, 100 years later, in fact. So we have to understand what did they do, and what did they and what are the exact uh, systematic things that are ingrained, that we are not able to eliminate from our education. So that is what my whole attempt, or my study, or my research had been in past 10 years, to understand this and how to strategize and how to remove it. So now, with this background, I will try to point out what did they do. It is very clear their intention was to enslave Indians. They knew that Indians are hard fighters. They have retaliated Islamic invasion. They had almost got rid of them. They couldn't. They didn't allow Portuguese. They didn't allow other Russians, French, whoever came over. They were thrown back. So they knew that unless our mindset is enslaved, they cannot rule here. They will. British also will have to go away. So their intention was very clear, and their instrument was to do it through education. Now, to do that, they had to do two things. One is they had to remove our history, our continuity of history, I would say, not history. We had a very, pride for people who fought, people who protected the dharma of the land. And we had continued that particular historical characters and culture, and they wanted to erase it. They wanted to get rid of our sense of pride in us. Second, they wanted to disconnect us from culture, because their another agenda definitely was to Christianize, because the invasion, as you rightly told about 3G, the invasion was just not for money, but also for religion. So these two things they had to do. And to do this, they introduced what they call English. And somehow Macaulay and his team wanted to prove that it is English which is higher than Sanskrit or any other Indian languages. They had to prove this. Now, to do this, the only way that they could do this was to replace Gurukuls or get rid of Gurukuls. We all know it is Macaulay who made the first penal codes, or later on they established Congress also, Congress as a party, in fact. They made first penal code, and they removed the credits of all the Gurukuls that were functioning in the country. So they targeted Gurukul. Now, people were not accepting that. People were still going to Gurukul, and people were still learning Sanskrit. We all know that even till Tilak, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, even Dr. Radhakrishnan, they all had learned Sanskrit and they knew Sanskrit. So their idea of removing Gurukul completely was not working. So they had to strategize, they had to design a system. Now we have to very carefully understand what did they do as a system to ensure that we are completely finished after 40 to 4 or 5 decades, uh, uh, and they are successful in that. They did two things. They targeted teachers and they targeted students systematically. They knew Gurukul means it is teacher centered. Everything is around teacher centered. So the goal is to remove the importance of teacher from the whole system. There has to be a system to do that. Otherwise it will not happen, because people are, the whole society is respecting and following teacher centric system. So they needed a system. Another was, they wanted to ensure that children should not become thinkers. They should not become carrier of traditions. They should not become, carrier of wisdom or scriptures. They should get disconnected from all these things. So they introduced a system. I would say 2-3 things they introduced. One is a system of timetable. Now this was very dangerous method to finish both teachers and students. Now, to implement timetable, they established board, and they started connecting schools to board, and schools has to follow the rules and regulations of the board, and there is a timetable. Now, this timetable is supposed to finish a particular course or a set of textbook which the board has prescribed in a limited number of time, and number of hours is also prescribed in that. Now, to do that, what happens? Some children, let's say some children will take 2 hours to memorize a shlok, but many children will 2 days to memorize the shlok. But here is a timetable which goes on, and the teacher knows that larger chunk of children has not memorized the shlok, but I have to move ahead, and another shlok is introduced. So timetable neither recognizes the abilities of a particular student who is a fast learner, nor allows a student who is a weak learner in the sense of academics, I'm saying, who is a weak learner, to settle down to a particular concept. It moves on, and the teacher is forced to move on. Now what happens in this? The child doesn't learn and the teacher fails. This removes the importance of a particular teacher. Secondly, they introduced multiple teacher concept. So there is not one teacher who is teaching all the subjects, or there is no one teacher who is mentored around which the children, parents, and everyone is centered. So there are multiple teachers who comes on and goes on in a very periodic timetable structure, and hence the relation between teacher and the child never gets developed, because the teacher is spending not more than 45 minutes behind a set of students. So their timetable structure that successfully worked to remove the importance of teacher and to make sure that the child is not able to learn in a schooling system. Then they introduced an assessment methodology. We all know that a particular child may be weak in academics or memorizing a shlok, as I put it in as an example, but he may be skilled in a lot of many other things. There is no assessment methods in schooling system today which recognizes, particularly in our country, which recognizes the skill of the child irrespective of its pace or its ability to perform academically. So if the child is not performing at par with the designed system, the child fails. And this particular assessment method, it enforces rote learning thereafter, because all the child has to do is ensure that they are able to memorize whatever is given to them and try to perform and achieve the desired score of what we call pass. So this assessment method, they ensured that child is never, or the system or the country is never able to recognize or nurture or develop the core skills and abilities that the generations are having. And even the parents get focused ke marks kitna laya. So they introduced this timetable, this assessment method, and they introduced culture. Now, the culture is English medium. And when you say English medium, obviously the vocabulary, the glossaries that you use for communication, for other purposes, based on your native language or based on Sanskrit driven languages, that is lost. So your culture becomes, or your culture gets in sync with the Western or Christianized culture, which is founded in English language. So they ensure that it is all is in English. So we call it English medium schools. And child who comes to a standard 1 doesn't know English at all, and you give them 8 to 10 books to study in English, all in English. How will the child learn? So there is no learning. So failure of learning starts from standard 1, but the whole parents, system, teachers are chasing this to make the child learn without understanding or without giving a single thought that this is not possible. The child doesn't know the language, and we are enforcing 6 to 7 to 8 books on the child, all in a language which is not known to the child. So this is the impact of English language being. There is no harm in learning English language, but the way it is ingrained in the system, it ensures the child doesn't learn even English properly. And there is no scope of actual learning or actual education. And fourth, when all these things are happening, they made sure that most of the content is garbage. I say garbage because these content that are taught to children are either fake, particularly in terms of history, or they are scientifically incorrect or incomplete. If it is not incorrect, it is incomplete. For example, your studies on health science, your study on basically different other different kinds of sciences. Most of them are theoretical, not practically learned, not applied learning, and the child doesn't have scope to go and realize what they have learned is possible in real world or not, it is happening in real world or not. So the real world and education are already disconnected in all terms. So the content largely is garbage because there is no importance of that. You can see that what a child learns in standard 1 forgets in standard 2 or standard 3. What we learn in standard 3 is not usable in standard 10. So when we are studying standard 10 textbooks, what contribution has the textbooks of all previous 9 years have done to me? Why can't those contents enrich my mind so that in standard 10 I am able to I have so much content to be tested? No, it is only standard 10 that will be considered in the assessment, board exam assessment. The rest of the contents doesn't carry any meaning. So children have wasted their 9 years in a way. So they put all these things, timetable, assessment, culture, and content. These things they created and put in a way that teachers and children both have no growth that comes up from a school. And the proof is coaching class and tuition classes are doing much better job, and schools are not able to do the same job. And this is coaching classes and tuition classes are proof of it. So this is considering this background. Now we have to think we don't have to change only the curriculum. Most of the changes that are being attempted are twofold. One, history. Government of India, because they are serious people, present government is serious, they want to correct these things, they have the intention to correct these things, and there are a lot of opposition who want to make sure that we are not able to do it. But they are correcting only two things. One is they are trying to change history and trying to write real history and write history of India, not the history of invaders. They are trying to do it. The second thing that they are trying to do is somehow trying to, they are attempting to inculcate the cultural aspect of our country, of different states, different regions, different languages, how to, children, how they start respecting these two things. They are still working on the textbook and content area alone. They are not working on the system area, where timetable, as I said, timetable, assessment, and the cultural aspect of the school, what we call schooling system. Unless they work on these core things, even if they put some changes in the content, it's not going to work, because you may be there for another 10 years, you have built a very good content. If someone else will come into power, it's very easy to change the content again. But if we change the system as a whole, to reverse the system back on this track will not be acceptable to parents. Once parents will realize that there is a very good working system in education, which has been tested and which has been applied and experienced by parents in terms of their growth of their child. So there has to be a systematic change that has to be applied, and this is what we have been doing in past 10 years, in terms of experiments, you can say, with few schools that we had in our hand. And we fortunately got the opportunity to work with the board, and we are trying to do this for Bharatiya Shiksha board, the new board that has been created by Government of India and probably patronized by Swami Ramdev and Patanjali. And I'm thankful to Patanjali and Swami Ramdev for having given this opportunity to me and my team. So this is the background, Aditya.
So the CBSE, I have studied in CBSE board in India, and I've done reasonably well. But and there's another board called ICSE, and the third is now Bharatiya Shiksha board. And what you talked about content, like NCRT content, now people were very enraged by Bhagat Singh being called a terrorist, but they were not enraged on glorification of Aurangzeb and Islamic invaders. They were not enraged too much. In fact, many roads in New Delhi are named after the Islamic invaders.
Correct.
And many prominent politicians live on those roads. Big prominent politicians live there, and they drive everywhere. So what is the main difference going to be in the Bharatiya Shiksha board? Is it going to be the education process or the content? Both, because content is what makes up the identity, and the education system makes up the assimilation of knowledge and the communication. So what are the changes actually between the two? What are the differences?
See, there is going to be a major difference in terms of process also. Content definitely is going to be different. I think you will, people will soon hear from Astha channel or Sanskar channel or press releases from Swami Ramdev's team, including him, in fact, that there are two laboratories that we had developed. One is Gurutva, another is Life Lab. Now, Life stands for leadership, innovational values, and excellence. That is how we have, composed Life. Uh, so, Life Lab is basically to establish some standards in schools in terms of pedagogy, in terms of culture, in terms of how textbooks should be chosen, what content should be taught, whether the content develops these life elements in students or not, whether the pedagogy or culture or other aspects ensures that these life elements are developed in students or not. And there is a framework defined by the life element of human development. And this human development is not about technology or learning of science. It is about human sciences. It is about making of the brain, making of the body, making of the core abilities of a particular human. So there is a framework based on our ancient sciences like Ashtang Yoga, Panchakoshya Sharir, Sadhan Chatushtay. I will not elaborate these terminologies, but these terminologies are well known to people who study spirituality. So, so these will be the frameworks of human development. Studies of different sciences can happen, but if there is no framework or there is no particular path on which a human development philosophy is followed, then the man is lost, and the sciences and skills, different skills that uh, they have learned, may not be applied correctly. So this was necessary, in fact. And Gurutva basically will be a continuous teacher development program. It is not about whether a teacher does B.Ed, M.Ed or not. It is about a teacher who is working in the institution or school or Gurukul, how they are working for their own growth path in terms of knowledge, in terms of performance, in terms of social well-being or social recognition, in terms of intellectual rise, in terms of financial rise, in all terms. Whether there is a growth path for the teacher or not, Gurutva system will ensure that teachers are able to get an intellectual freedom or independence, and they are getting a social respect and a growth path. So these two systems are basically will be applied in Bharatiya Shiksha Board, and which I think is missing in CBSE or ICSE. CBSE or ICSE are following their own previously designed systems. And in terms of content, of course, there will be a big change. Content is going to be holistic. It is going to include scriptures of our country. It is going to include real history of our country. It is going to include regional histories of our country. It is going to unite what they have tried to divide in terms of caste. The content will attempt to unite back the whole society. We will recognize even regional literature, regional heroes, and we'll give them space in content. So from northeast states, from southern states, southern India states, Tamil Nadu, all those states, from Kashmir, Himachal, Haryana, all those states. These states probably do not find a lot of room in our textbook content. So all this, there is a very integrated approach in the development of the content. At the same time, the content itself will make sure how it fits in the child's mind. So there will be different abilities of the child. Somebody may be good in academics, others may be good in, may have a business mind, may have an administrative mind. It depends. It will depend on the child's ability to grasp the content of the book, and there will be an assessment methodologies which the teachers, parents, and system, and some ancient methods will together decide what kind of personality, what kind of skills, what kind of character a child is developing from these content. So there is a career or early career study, research and alignment that is going to be possible through this system. So there will be a big difference between CBSE and Bharatiya Shiksha Board. A huge gap will be there.
So the new schools, can the existing schools subscribe to Bharatiya Shiksha Board?
Yes. So what we have proposed is that Life Lab, the role of Life Lab, once a school applies to BSB for their affiliation, in fact, Life Lab will come into picture. They will work with school. They will help them to organize their infrastructure, their system. Their teachers will be trained to a certain level. Parent education program will start. All these things will happen for 6 months to 1 year. And then the school will come to a level when it will be functioning as per the policies of Bharatiya Shiksha Board. Any school of any board can apply. It will be from next year probably.
So the existing schools can also change to it, or they'll have to do a lot of change to make the teachers ready and other things ready?
existing schools can also change. As I told you, they will have to, you let's take an example of IT industries. Now, I have worked from IT company, so I will give that example. Now, let's say we have a company which has come up and has been doing good in past 4 to 5 years, and then the company suddenly wants to get qualified for capability maturity model, CMM level 3, 4, 5. All those different levels are there. So apart from doing the projects, the company gets involved into certain process improvement methodologies, and they educate all the staffs. They upgrade their systems, and they improve their quality analysis and control systems and all those things. They start doing all these things, activities apart from their regular activities, and then they qualify for CMM level 3, and then they upgrade further, go for CMM level 4. It will be of similar fashion, you can say. There is a school already functioning with a particular board, and then we will work with them and will help them to upgrade their approach in education. And at a particular stage, they will achieve this, Bharatiya Shiksha board level 1, you can say, and they can join the board.
So is it targeted only at English speaking schools or Hindi speaking schools also, or other languages, local
No,
language?
all schools. I think Government of India, what I read from it, Government of India has allowed Bharatiya Shiksha board to consider traditional gurukuls also to be taken into the board. So maybe that will be a different stream, separate from English medium schools or other medium schools, but they will be taking. They have considered all these schools.
And
They have even considered tribal schools.
what about madrasas?
Now, this is a difficult question for me to answer. That if madrasas are open to join us, and if they are open to fit to Bharatiya Shiksha Board's standards and way of teaching and content and teacher development program, there are continuous parenting program. There is going to be continuous parenting program in this. So if they are eager to join this development program, I don't think they will deny it.
So in the when you talk about Bharatiya Shiksha Board, when we say Bhartiya, now again the global concept is nationalism is bad, patriotism is good. That's what the new definition of. I was shocked, and this is how they change the narratives. So what is good or bad, they keep changing it, and mostly the fight is intellectual. So are you teaching patriotism or you're teaching nationalism?
See, these are I think the gimmicks of the left mindsets. They are, according to me, they are two different sides of same coin. So how we see our country uh, is, we can see it as a failure. Trying to define through boundaries, that will be there is a feeling that comes from the past and comes to and connect is meaningless, and without patriotic feeling we cannot protect the nation. So these are not two different things, they are essentially same thing, in fact.
No, but the in the US, they're telling everybody, don't be nationalistic, be patriotic. Now you're right, is a same side, is a two sides of the same coin, but one is black and one is white. So it is that's way. So when they say nationalism, they say that the natives of the land should not get any rights. That's what they talk about. So nationalism versus patriotism is a colonialism versus freedom fight. Because when people are nationalistic, the natives get the rights and they don't want. So this is again the European colonization policy, that to
Mhm.
deny the natives their rights. And that is also creeped into India. And you will be surprised, most of these people who are creating these kind of strategies are coming from India and to the US and talking about it. What do you have to say?
Mm. See, as they separated science, spirituality from science, so they are separating patriotism from nationalism. It is their job, they will do it because they believe on a philosophy that this world should meet destruction as soon as possible. We, from our country, the belief had always been of, yug, lakhs of years of Kali Yuga to go. So we believe that there should be peace, there should be unity, and there should be methods through which people remain integrated and live longer peacefully. Now, it cannot happen by dividing nation and patriotism. I think nation is a body, but patriotism is the atma of it. Separately, none of them can work. Whatever they are trying to do, people sooner or later must recognize that without a nation, the sense of patriotism will not develop. And without sense of patriotism, nation cannot be protected. And once people will realize, they will not allow these kind of people to, apply their divisive policies. Now, in Bharatiya Shiksha Board, one of the goal is to take this curriculum even to foreign other countries. In fact, if it goes to America, nothing like it, because the content is going to be holistic. As I told you, I will give you a simple example so that you get a clarity of how holistic the content is going to be. Now, in our Shastra, in fact, I will give you two examples so that it becomes more clear. In our Shastra, we are very clearly taught that plant kingdom, animal kingdom, and human kingdom, these are all different kingdoms. Humans are not social animals. This concept have come from the West, that humans are social animals. We are put in the animal category in the roots itself. So there is no scope of human to develop to the concept of human. There is no intention, because that is what the text says. It came because they consider humans as sinners, born sinners, and we consider them born divine. So there is a different basic religious difference, which has been the foundations of these educational teachings as well. So we have put it humans in a separate kingdom. There are other kingdoms also. Dev kingdom is there. We are not talking on those things in curriculum, right? Textbook right now. We are putting it in a very different way. But this is a basic difference which will change the mindset of the student, of the generation next. Once they understand that we humans are a different species and not animals, we are in a state of karma. The animals and other creatures are in a state of bhog, and it is our karma which is responsible for everything that is happening in this world. And it is not going God. There is no God who is going to decide on these factors unless we force some godly forces to come and decide. So once humans realize this, there will be a paradigm shift, in fact, of generation next thinking, and their behaviors, their approach to science, environment, every other things, in fact. So these are fundamental changes that we are applying. I will give you another example. Like, we are taught about 5 senses in English, and we are taught we have ears, nose, tongue, skin, and all these things. We from eyes we are able to see. These things are taught to children. Even if we don't teach these things, children knows these things. But in our Indian context, there is a complete different perspective. यदि आँख है तो उसके विषय रूप है, and रूप is the gun of Agni. Agni is an element of tamas ahankar of Maya. So there is a creational approach to the Gyan Indriya. So when we study our Gyan Indriya, or the 5 senses, from the context of the whole creation, a complete different mindset will develop. So our curriculum will surely impact the mindset of other countries also, and they will start seeing the world in a different perspective. And the idea of Vasudev Kutumbakam, that still lives only with few people, or I would say it still lives with our country Bharat, probably it will spread to other countries. So this is the idea. Yes, Aditya.
So the last question on this series is, the Bharatiya Shiksha Board, now everything in India becomes politics. And when Baba Ramdev promotes something, it is met with a huge resistance from the left.
Correct.
And do you think that that will impact the implementation of this, or this is a government of India project where Sri Baba Ramdev ji uh, is just collaborating?
Uh, See, board is always, is always prescribed or permitted by Government of India. Uh, Probably Baba Ramdev or Patanjali has the stake in it, major stake in it, or patronized it. And as you rightly said, people, whether it is Baba Ramdev or Modi ji, both of them, if they would do these kind of things, there will be a group who consider themselves as intellectuals. They will come and they will try to oppose this. But take my words here, Swami Ramdev is not a such a childish person or such a mentally weak person. He is very strong and very fixed minds. He has a very fixed mindset, and he's a very learned man as well. And he's very sharp. He has a very sharp mind as well. So he has all the ability to counter these people, and he is monetarily also sound also at the moment. So I don't think these people will be able to challenge them on a longer run.
Thank you so much, Anchal, for coming on the show and talking about the differences between Bharatiya Shiksha Board and CBSE, which is the two major school boards in India, and also uh, ICSE. ICSE we have not spoken about, but that is looks like a totally colonial kind of a board. So we all know that
Correct.
ICSE.
I am a product of ICSE.
So you they create you like you are a English person almost.
Yeah. I always give example of I compare because I studied Shakespeare, Julius Caesar in Standard 10 in ICSE, and I always say the best author of the West has produced two friends, Caesar and Brutus, and at the end, Brutus kills Caesar. So their friendship also is that kind. But we have Krishna and Sudama. See how that friendship ends.
Now, the exploitation mentality of Europeans has always been there, and we have seen that they have not done anything for the world without money and for money. They only work for money, and expecting them. And the same is with the Islamic thought also. Everything has been because for money, and everyone is being sold for money. Anyway, thank you so much, Chanchal Malviya ji, and wonderful talking to you. I'll see you again. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you.
Namaste.